Another day, another tomato episode. And I don't mean an episode like you have on TV. I mean, it's having an episode. Everything with this car is really starting to go wrong. So the videos have been coming a little bit sporadically, and basically that's because I'm trying to work on the car and therefore earn a living, and at the same time, in between things, in my own time, film it. And that is taking a lot of effort. Fine, I get that, it happens. I mean, I've tried doing that before with like Cecily and that went well. Tomato's slightly different. It's a BX16 valve. I bleed BX16 valves. I love these cars. Tomato is pushing me. Tomato is pushing me. I still maintain it's a good car, and I still maintain that it has the makings of a good car. I've had other BX16 valves in there before. Alex, who appeared on the 24-hour live stream, first 3 hours from 6 o'clock on the Saturday, he had two BX16 valves, and one of them was an absolute pig. One of them got sold, and the guy who was buying it said, "I'm going to break it for bits." And we both said, good, because we didn't think it should exist. It was that rubbish. Honestly, it was just a complete pig. This is not like that. I think this is a good car. I think underneath this feels like a good car, but it keeps throwing curveballs. I mean, it does not stop throwing problems. And it's one of those situations, it's completely predictable, really. It's a 30-odd-year-old car. I mean, what, 34 this year, this car. It's been sat around a long time. We know it's low mileage, and we guess it's probably been sat in a field for quite long periods of its life. You would assume that there will be hiccups. You would assume that there will be little issues, little implications. You're trying to do little jobs, you're trying to do big jobs, and then little other things will crop up along the way. And in many ways, this car is really, really fortunate because it has the most pragmatic owner stroke customer I've had. I mean, well, not I've ever had. I've had people the same. There are some real good people out there. James is just, you ring him up and you say, "James, I've found this." And normally you're expecting, "Oh God, how much is that going to..." And he's just, "Well, you know, it has been sat up in a field a long time." I know, but he's not upset about it. Maybe it's because he's not working on it. So from that point of view, James, JM on Cars is the perfect owner for the Tomato. He's a perfect customer, really. I mean, you know, in terms of how easygoing he is. The problem I have is that the car is immobilised, and I have 3 other jobs waiting to come in. So I'm having to stop filming and just get on with fixing it at times. But then it just keeps throwing me new problems. And it has done this today. As much as I come in the morning and I think, right, today I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And I must not let motivation drop because my head can get a little scrambled, and it is it's a juggle. It's a hell of a juggle to try and do all this. And it can be a stress, but I accept that, and I accept that I take a lot of things on myself. But when the goalposts keep moving, well, they're not moving like this, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Because you think, right, okay, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And you get in and you do this, and you move on to the next this, and something completely different pops up. So what is that exactly? What am I moaning about? I'll show you. That there, the yellow foamy stuff, that's the back of the carpet underneath the dashboard. The other side, naturally, is the same. Now you're going to ask, how has this happened? Didn't I say, when Jack brought this car here, that it was a really good one and it was really solid? Well, yes, I did, and yes, it is. But the size of the chunks, look at that. The size of the chunks of underseal that were hiding that are not little shards. It's not like, basically, when I was up in the wheel arch earlier on, taking out yet more stuff, I saw a little bit of orange, and I thought, oh, what's going on with that? And I got the wire brush and the drill, and it was a little rusty scab, and I thought, oh, that's awkward. All right, not a problem. I'll rub it back, and before I go putting the suspension back in, a bit of rust treatment, bit of zinc primer or whatever, a bit of etch, bit of paint, bit of seam sealer, whatever. Then some Dinitrol, lather it up, fine, because it's in the firing line from the tyre. What actually happened was I took the wire brush to it and massive scabs came off and left me with a hole that I could get my finger through. And now I'm in a bad mood. Oh, but that's not everything. It's not just that. So to fix that, I've got to take the dashboard out. Yes. I might not have to take the dashboard. I don't know yet. I think I will. The problem is, behind this bit of wheel arch here is the fuse box and all the wiring loom. And then there's sound deadening that goes all the way up to the top. You wouldn't believe it driving a BX, there's sound deadening in it, but there is, there's quite a lot. And it goes right to the top. So if you do any welding here, you set fire to things in there. And if you don't set fire to things in there, you melt things in there, like the insulation on wiring. So yes, it is not going well. Now, you think, fine, well, why don't you just do everything you're supposed to do, get it off the ramp, get some of the other customers' cars, including a channel member who has an awesome 205 that I want to get in, get them in, get them sorted, sort out, you know, do various TVR services, blah, 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 and then bring it back in again and have another crack at it in a bit, because James is a very patient man and he understands. To repair this, it makes it so much easier if the suspension isn't on, because you've got access, which is good. But I already have to take the fuel tank out because the fuel hoses need to be changed. Well, the fuel pipes are actually worse. They need to be changed, but because of it's a 16 valve, a fuel injection BX has fuel hoses going over the tank. Carb ones don't. You can do them in situ, but these ones, no. These ones go up and over the tank, so the tank has to come down. So I've got to take out the back seat, the carpet in the back, the fuel tank from underneath. We've already disconnected the height corrector at the back. The fuel tank from underneath and everything that goes with that, and emptying the fuel tank. Then I've got to take out the carpet potentially in the front, which means taking out both the front seats and the centre console, and then the dashboard left to come out, and the wiring loom that goes with it, and potentially the fuse box, because there's not a huge amount of free play. And I've still got to put all this back together. I've got a bloody steering rack. Look, there's me lovingly putting this steering rack back together, ready to go. Look, it's got all new joints in it and everything, waiting to go in. And it can't go in, because I was faffing about making an exhaust. Now I've made an exhaust. But I can't do that because I've had to take the driver shafts out. Why have I had to take the driver shafts out? Because the CV boots are all perishing. Fine, okay, well, that's not the end of the world, is it, CV boots? No, but then I had to take the engine mount out as well because that was perishing. Look, on the back of the engine block. This goes on the back of the engine block. The engine block sits at an angle. Peugeot 205 owners will find this very familiar. Drive shaft passes through here and a bearing. Rubber mount at the bottom. Oh, look, it's all perished. You can't see it because it's not focusing, but give me something to, swear to God. Look. Look at the perish. Look at that. And that's not even, I don't think that's very old, to be honest with you. I can't see a date stamp on it. I don't think it's an original one. Modern rubber, eh? I'm not putting poly in it. Everyone's like, oh, you always put poly in it. No, not in these. Hell no. No, not unless you want to shake your fillings out. And I've had to make more suspension pipes to go at the bottom there. Oh, and then there's the struts. You see the struts? I rebuilt the struts. Well, I didn't rebuild the struts. That's a complete fabrication. But what I did do was clean them all up, take all the gunk off, and fit these new leak-off pipes, of which there were 2 brand new ones in the boot. It seems that flipping bangers, I assume, didn't do that, unless Jack number 27 bought them. So these are the struts. Fine, not a problem. They have been soaking overnight through the return end in oil, and they are now very slick. Lovely. Tomorrow will be its best self. It will ride nicely. I don't know if they're worn or anything, but yeah, I'm not doing that now. They move quite freely, a lot more freely than they did, so that's good. So you think, right, we'll just put those back in then. I've got to put the new rubber gaiters on as well that go over the top. Ow! Jeez. But the rubber hoses go onto some metal pipes in there. Guess what? Guess what? I mean, you could write this stuff. Now, I don't know if you can see this on this camera. It's not amazing. Oh, you can see it. Look. That little hole there. Yeah, that's a hole. That's an actual hole. So what would have happened is I'd have put this all back together, because I've cleaned, although it doesn't look it, I have actually cleaned some of this. I'd have put this all back together. I'd have fitted new hoses. I'd have put the struts back in. I'd have done everything lovingly and put it back for James, and he'd have driven it, and then he'd have messaged me and said, it's got a green puddle under it, and I'd have gone, because it has, because it would have been leaking out of that hole. Now, that is just rusted away. Now, I've had to change these. I've actually unbolted them, look. Does it come off? Oh, that's split as well. Excellent. Look, the tomato just keeps giving. Look at that. It's got a fantastic split. Oh, look at that. It's come off completely and it's got another split, both ends. Swear to God. Anyway, so this, you can't buy these, of course, so I'm going to have to try and make one or something. The only time I've ever done this before was on my Mark 1. I had to come up with something, and I actually managed to harvest some off another BX spares. Well, another car I was breaking at the time, but I no longer have this. The other side is in better condition. I think the other side might have been replaced at some point, but I mean, it just doesn't stop, does it? I'm slowly ending up with more parts on the floor around here, and it is an absolute state now, and on the ramp and everywhere else, and on the bench, than on the car. It's non-stop. This is the yoke that the lower engine mount fixes to. Can you see? No, you're going to focus on me again, aren't you? Look, that's all perished as well. Great. It is not stopping. Honestly. I've made some alterations, I've made some repairs. I've sorted out the doser valve return pipe, so it's now not going bent around itself and then up and over the wing, and who's done that, really? So I've done that. I've done the ball joint. I've done one ball joint. I still haven't got another one. I thought I might have one here. The only one I can find is a sub-quality brand. So I've got another link for Mr. M to order another Febby one, so it's got matching either side. I've done the height corrector pipe. I've done the suspension pipe for the near side, the one that goes up and over the exhaust and along the bulkhead and everything like that, the one that's the hardest one to do. I've disconnected the height corrector on the back. Now I've got to take the fuel tank out. Oh man, it's never ending. I think what it is, and it's always a risk taking on an old car that hasn't been on the road much. Obviously, they dragged it off the field on They dragged it out of the field on flipping bangers, because you don't actually know what they did on flipping bangers because it's TV, and therefore most of it is probably complete fabrication. But it has spent some time parked up for a long period of time outside. That I am sure, because the needles on the speedo and everything are all faded. The ones that would be in the sunlight, the ones that are up at the top aren't. So, and the seats are a little bit faded and everything. It's in line with the fact it's set up, and so therefore what you saw on Flippin' Bangers may well be the case. And it's gone from there, and it's gone to one guy, and it's gone to another guy, and it's gone through a few people, and they haven't actually got it on the road. They've had good intentions, got it in, and then for whatever reason, they've not been able to see it through, and they've moved it on. And then it's ended up with Jack, number 27. Now he's done, by his own admission, he's done sort of the bare minimum that he could do to properly put it back on the road. So some people could have bodged it back on the road, spent absolutely pennies on it, just bangonomics it back onto the road to get some videos out of it. He bought stuff, he bought the right spheres, not a great make admittedly, but he bought the right spheres, he bought the timing belt stuff, he wasn't cutting corners. he was being economical with it because he knew he would move it on because it was a YouTube car, not his car, although he has since said that he actually quite liked it. And had it been now, he might have kept it longer. But I think we definitely wouldn't have kept it longer now if he'd have known all this. But yeah, basically, he's done a few thousand miles in it, or not even that, moved house in it, you know, it's gone back into use. And I always say to people who've had a car off the road a long time, if you put a car back into use after it's been sat up a long time, it will complain. You're going to be the test pilot for the next however many months, maybe a year. And I don't think it was out of that phase, because it's now at the point where everything is starting to complain. So like the clutch is a bit sticky now. It's not the clutch, I think it's just the cable. The handbrake cables look a bit manky. The brake pad warning wire looms are all broken. Suspension pipes, some of them are looking a little bit, you know, and it's just bits of rubber like that. I bet you any money that perishing is not. That's not a long time thing. That's recent. So that's a dry bit of rubber that's been sat there enjoying retirement. Thanks very much, and then has had number 27 tanning the arse off it down the road and being asked to arrest the engine's movement in the engine bay, and it's gone, I can't do that. And it's going to make like an atom. So. Yeah, it's just one of those things, and I think James has got it at that point where it wasn't quite as far through the sort of recommissioning phase as we were hoping. I think it was actually at the beginning of the recommissioning phase. It will be a much nicer car when it's done, I've no doubt of that. I think I'm very keen for this car to be, I realise I'm waffling here, but I'm doing anything but work on this bloody thing. I'm very keen for this car to be spot on. I want it to drive brilliantly. I want it to be really good to drive and drive exactly like they should. And I want that because James himself, JM on Cars, as you have seen by the, Christ knows how many videos he puts out, he drives a lot of cars. And he owns, like, I think he owns a Ferrari and Porsche. He was into his Lotuses. You know, he's got, I think he bought an MG ZS 180, which, I've nearly died. Interestingly, side note, MG ZS 180 and this, the engine and these, when you put them both on the rolling road, the power graphs, although the numbers are slightly different, because the MG ZS 180 is about 10, 15 horsepower more, they're almost identical. If you plot them on the same graph, they kind of, it's like they're parallel. Not straight, but yeah, they mimic each other. So, well, actually, no, that's mine with, I had the flaps pulled out of mine. Maybe that was what. Anyway, so he's got one of those, and he's got 10 ton of cars, and he drives a lot of cars, and I want him to drive one of these and get a fair crack of the whip. I want him to know, you know, to drive one and it not be a letdown. And if he drives it and goes, oh, I don't really like that, fine. But I don't want it to be rubbish. I don't want it to be, because these, when they're like any old car, you know, if you drive a crap one, it doesn't really paint you a fair picture of what they're all like. I mean, you know, you could have 10 of these lined up, used cars at a car show. They're all shiny and stuff, but some of them will drive like rubbish. I've had one before. I've had a couple of cars before, but I've had a BX16 valve, which was pretty as anything. But the beauty was just, it was only skin deep. Underneath, it was an absolute dog. It was slow, it was rattly, it was rusty, it was leaky, it was just garbage. So, yeah, I want this, I don't care what it looks like, I want this to be mechanically, so that when he drives it, he goes, oh, this is really cool. And then he takes it somewhere and gets it painted. That's the plan. Right now, I'm tempted to set fire to it.